Comedy Festival in 2022, featuring comedians Jeff Paul and Juliana Rodriguez.
Issue of a digital services tax has been a problem, I'd say a thorn in the side of U.S. administrations for many years.
The bill is coming due for U.S. tech firms. Companies like Amazon, Google, and Meta will soon owe Canada billions in back taxes. What exactly is Canada's digital services tax, and why is it infuriating Donald Trump so much? Welcome to Your World Tonight. I'm Kimberly Gale. Also on the program, protesters in Tel Aviv say the time for partial deals is over, pressuring their government to reach an agreement for the release of all remaining hostages in Gaza. And
when a foreigner comes to India, he must be able to see, experience, and get in touch with the local Indian gay and lesbian community.
A growing number of travel agencies and tour guides are turning India into a more inclusive holiday destination. For a time, it appeared Canada and the U.S. were on track to announce a trade deal in July, a possibility that today seems far out of reach. Trade talks were derailed after President Donald Trump abruptly canceled all negotiations. At the center of his latest grievance is Canada's digital services tax. It's set to take effect on Monday. Philip Lishanak has more on what the tax does and why it's upended weeks and months of talks.
Economically, we have such power over Canada.
From the Oval Office, U.S. President Donald Trump says that Canada has no choice but to axe the digital services tax to be charged to companies like Amazon, Google, Meta, Uber, and Airbnb starting Monday.
And we have all the cards. We have every single one.
France was one of the first countries to introduce a digital services tax in 2019, and Canada followed suit 3 years later. Then Prime Minister Justin Trudeau said it was aimed at recouping some of the billions Canadians spend on U.S.-based digital advertising, online marketplaces, and social media platforms.
Canadians can understand that the largest, most successful internet companies need to pay their fair share of taxes in Canada.
As of Monday, they're going to implement a retroactive tax.
U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent says they were surprised that the 3% tax was not only going ahead, but it would be applied retroactively to January 2022.
This was something from the Trudeau years, so we were hoping as a sign of goodwill that the new Carney administration would at least put a break on that during the trade talks.
John Bosca-Rial specializes in trade law at Toronto-based McCarthy Tetro. He says last year the U.S. had already filed a challenge to the digital services tax using a mechanism in the Canada-U.S.-Mexico trade deal, or CUSMA. So he sees this latest flare-up at a time of heightened trade tensions as a negotiating tactic.
They very much think that they could get all kinds of concessions, not just on the tariff side, but in all these other areas, and digital services tax is being thrown into the mix.
Still, many Canadian business groups have opposed the tax as a trade irritant. Moshe Lander teaches economics at Concordia University in Montreal. He's not sure how attached the Carney government is to it.
Look, it's a bargaining chip, and so if the Canadian government wants to keep it and wants to apply it retroactively, then they're going to have to sacrifice something else.
Carney has not commented on the fate of the digital services tax, and for now, neither is Foreign Affairs Minister Anita Anand.
Won't be negotiating in public given the complexity of the negotiations, given the need to ensure that Canada's position is the strongest possible it can be.
One thing she did stress in this latest salvo in the trade war with the U.S. is that it reinforces the need to diversify Canada's international trading partners so the country will never again be 80% dependent on one particular economy. Philip Lishanak, CBC News, Toronto.
The federal government has ordered Chinese surveillance camera manufacturer Hikvision to shut down all operations in Canada. Industry Minister Melanie Joly made the announcement late Friday. Joly cited concerns over national security after a review by Canada's intelligence community. A spokesperson for Hikvision says Canada's decision is not based in fact and believes it comes from a bias against Chinese companies. Bezos' nuptials are dividing Venetians. Some see it as a star-studded celebration and a boost to the city's economy. For many others, it's a garish display of wealth in a time of growing inequality. You'll hear more about that later on Your World Tonight. The latest round of Israeli strikes have killed at least 70 people in Gaza and injured hundreds more. One strike hit a popular market near Gaza City, killing several Palestinian children. Meanwhile, inside Israel, protesters have returned to the center of Tel Aviv after a 2-week disruption caused by the war with Iran. And as Tom Perry reports, many are hopeful of a possible ceasefire in Gaza and the release of more hostages.
Once again, a sea of people, some waving Israeli flags, many carrying pictures of the 50 hostages, living and dead, still held by Hamas, filling a public square in Tel Aviv, demanding an end to the war in Gaza and for the hostages to come home.
I hope it's going to be a ceasefire, and I think that you have to stop everything, the war. I think that the people dying everywhere, it's enough. It's enough for us, for them, it's enough.
Zahava Goldman has been to many rallies like this, but tonight feels more hopeful. Overlooking the square, where this crowd has gathered, a high-rise building stands with a hole blown in its side, a scar of Israel's recent battle with Iran. To Goldman, it was U.S. President Donald Trump who put an end to that conflict, her hope that he now does the same in Gaza.
He's the king now. He's a little cuckoo, but he's the leader.
Others here just as convinced the U.S. president, for all his flaws, could be the unstoppable force that finally brings peace in whatever form that takes. But Yoni Collins, an Israeli-Canadian filmmaker and former IDF soldier, isn't setting his expectations too high.
I don't know politics, I don't know governments. I personally have hope. But that being said, I've had hope before at times where they talked about on the news that there may or may not be a ceasefire, there may or may not be a hostage deal. And I do not like to hope for what I can't see. I will not believe anything until I see the 50 home.
But for families of Israeli hostages, any hope is better than none. Dalia Kusnir-Horn is the sister-in-law of Eitan Horn, who was kidnapped on October 7th and remains in Hamas captivity. Eitan's brother Yari was taken as well that day, but released as part of a ceasefire deal in February of this year. Yari was in Washington, D.C. today, along with other former hostages, meeting with U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio. To Kusnir-Horn, it's a positive sign.
We need to seize the moment. We need to put all the pressure on all the involved countries and governments, and to finish this war in Gaza and the suffering of the Gaddafi people, the Israelis, and bring all the hostages together. All of them, all the Philippines.
In the Oval Office on Friday, Donald Trump breezily suggested a ceasefire deal in Gaza could come within a week. For people here, that would be nothing short of a miracle. And in this war, those have been in short supply. Tom Perry, CBC News, Tel Aviv.
A suicide bomber killed at least 13 Pakistani soldiers Saturday near the border with Afghanistan. At least 24 other people were injured, including several civilians. The attacker drove a car full of explosives into a Pakistani military convoy. A faction of the Pakistani Taliban claimed responsibility for the attack. Violence in the border regions between the two countries has risen steadily since 2021, when the Taliban took back control of Afghanistan. You might know about France's yellow vests. Now there's another colorful grassroots French movement, this time in pink. Founded after the police killing of 17-year-old Nahel Merzouk in 2023. The Pink Vests are a group of concerned mothers who are taking matters into their own hands. Kyle Brown reports.
Fatima Tassi and her team call out to the teenage boys gathered outside the tall apartment blocks of social housing. We're in Corbeil-Essonne, south of Paris, where youth tit-for-tat violence has often turned bloody. The group of mainly West African women known as the Gilets Roses, or Pink Vests, patrol the streets to offer support and steer the youth away from confrontation.
We're going to talk with them to see if they have any problems and see what we can do to help. We'll try to contact the deputy police chief to see what he can do for these young people.
For Naïs and Gilan, both 16, the police are part of the problem. Like teens in other low-income areas, they're frequently stopped and searched by law enforcement.
They're too violent. They come for no reason, and then they're surprised when things boil over.
They frisk us, we get angry, and it leads to violence.
Which is what happened 2 years ago in Nanterre on the other side of Paris. On June 27, 2023, police shot 17-year-old Nahel Merzouk at point-blank range as he tried to drive away from a police check. Belying police claims that the teen put them in danger, a video of the scene went viral and triggered riots across the country.
Because we saw ourselves in him.
As I continue my tour with the Gilets Roses, we meet two 16-year-olds going by the names DRS and Shark.
We were burning the garbage bins and everything. Finally, they were paying attention to us.
They were going to cover it up and try to say it was the kid's fault yet again. You're young and you make a mistake and they'll kill you. No way. That's why we decided to riot.
This time, though, the officer who killed Nahel was charged with murder last month, a rare event. Also last month, the French Parliament, dominated by conservatives and the far right, passed new legislation with tougher sentences for young offenders. Minors from the age of 16 can be tried as adults. Parents deemed negligent face stiffer fines and prison terms of up to 3 years.
These are often single-parent families, families that are already struggling.
Fatimata C says the state should be there to support young people, not just to punish them. Everyone, she says, deserves a second chance. Kyle Brown for CBC News, Paris.
Police in Montreal are trying to build relationships in the city's village neighborhood. In recent years, businesses and residents have complained about homelessness and public drug use. So as part of a pilot project, more police officers are patrolling the area on foot. But as Sharon Yonan-Reynolds reports, local advocates question whether more policing is the answer.
I told him no, I swear to God.
Two uniformed officers confront a man who they believe is selling drugs.
Why do you have your pills out and he's got money in his hand?
Because he wanted to put, I don't have...
It's a sight that's become all too common in Montreal's village neighborhood. The area's Citizens Association says that since the COVID-19 pandemic, homelessness and public drug use have intensified in the neighborhood. According to a survey the group carried out last year, about 68% of respondents considered the village to be not very safe or not safe at all. It's why the Montreal police have launched a pilot project called ECHO.
This is our normal day of work, so we'll head out and patrol the street here on St. Catherine.
Officer Mathieu Farley says squads from the neighborhood police stations will patrol on foot instead of in cars, getting as close to the community as possible. He says the goal is to intervene before a situation escalates. That could mean stopping a drug sale or helping someone experiencing a mental health crisis.
People see us, they have access to us, so it's easier for us to intervene. The main purpose is to reduce 911 calls, so have more people doing this type of work.
Montreal Police Chief Fatty Daguerre says in just a few weeks, the squad has already built relationships in the community.
When you see the same police officer walking by all the time, having coffee with the business people, with the neighborhood, so they're like, okay, wait a minute, he looks cool, he looks nice, can I talk to him?
But others are hesitant that this is the right approach.
Of course, the police officers have an image.
Jean-François Plouffe is with Action Autonomie, which advocates for the rights of people with mental illness. He says that police aren't always the best people to intervene when a vulnerable person needs help.
What those people need is time, is a durable relationship with other people that could help them. All of those things can be done by street workers.
He says officers often don't have the time or the training to build those relationships. Daguerre says while the police will never replace specialized intervention or social workers, they're still part of the solution.
With them, with us, with other partners, we have to find a way to build that village. I promise that this area will not be a problem in 2-3 years. Let's hope it happens.
He says he hopes to roll out the pilot project in other neighborhoods in the next few years. Sharon Yonan-Reynolds, CBC News, Montreal.
People around the world are taking part in celebrations for Pride Month this weekend, including one city where this year's Pride Parade was banned. In Budapest, thousands of people filled the streets across the city carrying rainbow flags and mocking the Hungarian Prime Minister. Viktor Orban's government has gradually curtailed 2S LGBTQ+ rights over the past decade. In March, lawmakers passed legislation allowing a ban on Pride events, citing the need to protect children. Organizers estimate at least 200,000 people from 30 countries took part in the march, including 70 members of the European Parliament. Most people go on vacation to escape stress, but for gay, non-binary, or transgender people, taking a trip can come with added challenges. And while countries like Hungary become increasingly hostile, others are making strides to attract more 2S LGBTQ+ travelers. Freelance reporter Morley Krishnan now on how India is becoming one such destination.
India is vast, it's diverse, there's so much that I haven't seen.
Alan Morris and his husband David are raring to come back to India. The Australian couple have already done the Golden Triangle, connecting the cities of Delhi, Agra and Jaipur. And earlier this year, they visited Mumbai and Hampi in South India, famed for its temples and palaces.
I take great pride in taking my partner David back and exposing him to all the wonders of what India is all about.
David agrees.
The most important thing for me, I enjoy going back to India because I feel safe.
Alan and David are among an emerging market of travelers setting their sights on India. According to the 2025 Gay Travel Index, put out by the Berlin-based Spartacus, India now ranks 44th out of 213 countries and territories for travel safety. This is higher than the United States, Italy, and Japan.
Slowly, India is becoming more inclusive.
Parth Patnaik is the India Membership Manager for the International LGBTQ+ Travel Association, or IGLTA. He says more people are visiting India because it is making strides towards greater inclusivity, including decriminalizing same-sex relationships and legally recognizing a third gender. But he acknowledges gay and lesbian Indians still face legal hurdles.
We're really hoping marriage equality will come soon, but it's a long journey.
There are many boutique agencies now cashing in on the rise of 2S LGBTQ+ tourists, from couples seeking luxury experiences to budget-conscious backpackers.
You can meet local gay men, hopefully make friends with them for a lifetime.
Sanjay Malhotra runs India Pink, a travel agency that caters to gay men.
When a foreigner comes to India, he must be able to see, experience, and get in touch with the local Indian gay and lesbian community.
Still, travelers are warned to be cautious. According to the Spartacus Travel Index, India lost marks because tourists could experience hostility from locals. And on its website, the IGLTA advises same-sex couples to exercise caution with public displays of affection, and says women, in particular, should be careful. But with Pride events growing in number and popularity across India, the country's tourism sector is hoping to find a pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. Murli Krishnan for CBC News, New Delhi.
You're listening to Your World Tonight from CBC News. I'm Kimberly Gale. You can hear Your World Tonight and other CBC radio programs wherever you are on your favorite podcast app. If ancient Greek tragedy can teach us anything, it's that even the most rich and powerful can fall from grace for tempting fate. And according to contemporary Canadian director Robert Carson, that message is just as urgent now as it was 2,500 years ago. That's why he's staging a classic Greek drama at one of the oldest amphitheaters in the Western world, on Sicily. Megan Williams reports. Oedipus at Colonus, Sophocles' final tragedy before he died around 406 BCE. The ancient Greek playwright died before it was staged in Athens, and about a century before it was likely put on here, in this open amphitheater in Syracuse, Sicily.
It's a kind of a holy space, that space. I mean, every stage, we talk about in Brookean terms, the theatre being a holy space, but that really is one.
Says legendary Canadian opera director Robert Carson, who's directing Oedipus at Colonus 3 years after he staged Oedipus Rex here. He sets the play among cypress trees on steep steps and divides the chorus into male and female, through the pouring of water through terracotta vases and chanting evoke ancient ritual.
The aim is catharsis for the audience, for the audience to be really deeply moved. Then there has to be an honesty, and I was talking all the time to the actors, every single one of them, that you cannot hide behind any technique or any artificial process. You have to be engaged.
That emotional connection has always been part of the experience here, especially in ancient times, when the theater had space for some 15,000 spectators. Today, it seats about a third of that. And this year, for the first time, audiences can follow the plays with real-time AI translation in multiple languages. They still sit enraptured by Aeschylus, Euripides, and Sophocles. But the relationship with theater is more aesthetic now, says head of the National Institute of Ancient Drama, Marina Valencise.
What was the theater built for?